hello, and welcome to You Are the Question, the show. And I am Cory, Edmund, Endrulat here with another episode with my guest, Crystal Endrulat. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you to the One Great Work Network. Of course, if you haven't visited already and you're curious what the One Great Work Network is, we are a collective of individuals who are content creators and teachers alike, seeking to open the minds of people and help bring to awareness universal concepts such as the natural law. You can visit it at onegreatworknetwork.com. But what is this show? You are the question. Well, therefore, I am also the question. We, by our actions, that are to be a question, help determine the world we live in. So by questioning ourselves, our condition, our actions, we question how we can help make the world a better place together. This is a show where we seek answers present for us all. By nature, the world depends on you. Where you stand, you are the question. So the objective of the show is to teach others one-on-one natural law directly and practically, utilizing coaching techniques such as questions, recitation, and helping guests come to their own conclusions. It becomes a hands-on learning experience for everyone, so that folks may even help teach others this knowledge. Each show is about 1 hour, and each guest is limited to about 3 shows. But since this is my sister, Crystal, who is also on Twitch, twitch.tv/KrystalsLife, you can follow her there. We are going to go a bit more deeper into this, and that's why we're going through way more than 3 shows to go through each subject in detail. Just creating a bit of conversation, talking about a concept with somebody who hasn't really learned the concept a whole lot. So it's good to get all these different guests on and just teach more of these subjects to a wide variety of different people in many different ways. So this is live from Twitch on Coconut TV. So that's twitch.tv/Coconut TV, KOOKOONUT. Live comments will be read and may or may not be discussed. Some ways of teaching this knowledge of natural law is more in-depth. However, as different guests are introduced, new ways of teaching will come with it. The difference is often dependent on where an individual currently is with their learning. So through exploring all the many ideas that we may talk about, our knowledge of natural law becomes more defined and thorough, therefore understood. Just a quick disclaimer, I do not expect people or any one guest to know the full nature thereof statism by the end of each show. I am your host, Cory Edmund Endrulat. Here with my guest, I am glad to introduce once more Crystal Endrulat of Crystal's Life. Here she is.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4. I'm super excited. Oh, you see the buddy. Okay, cool. I was actually worried that, well, Buddy's a little cut off, but she's just going to stay there. So I'm cool that she's in my background. Aw, yay. Thank you, Cory, for having me again for a 4th time. We made some great memories, and I feel like we are only progressing, and I'm really excited to see what you have in store for this episode. But I think we need to do a little cheers moment because we were both drinking the same drink, and I think it's kind of funny and kind of cute because they're both drinking the same thing. Cory really turned me on to this flavor of coconut water. It is ginger, lime, and turmeric. So, all right, Cory, let's cheers the camera and cheers chat for a wonderful episode to come. Ready? Cheers! Woohoo!
Cheers. Yes, very good. It's coconut water by C2O. Not a plug, not a sponsor or anything like that. Just sharing a company with a good product. I mean, it is
True.
what it is. You can energize, get some electrolytes, some, actual
What
hydration.
in hell is happening?
But
Correct.
yeah. And thank you for following new folks. And of course, like I said,
Hey,
this is live on
welcome.
twitch.tv/Coconut
Oh, wait,
TV.
that's
So,
Killian.
oh, cool. Okay,
You know,
cool. So, that's awesome. See, we build communities here and we get to talk to people one-on-one, directly and so forth. So
yeah.
I think that's what's really cool about this. This is actually, I think, our 5th episode, if I get that correct.
Oh.
Yeah, so just let's,
Snap.
we can do a quick recap based on some of the things we described last episode. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is
Bring
where
it on.
this is where we stand for today. Discovery versus belief. Though we'll probably go a little bit past that, obviously, because this is a bit more self-explanatory. But previously we went over the definitions of what is natural law. So we're actually getting into it. We're actually getting deeper and deeper into what actually natural law is. And so we defined it by its definition. Just to recap, it says universal, non-man-made, binding and immutable conditions that govern the consequences of behavior. So the consequences of behavior is governed by the natural law, which is universal, non-man-made, binding, and immutable, meaning it's universal and all around us all the time, timeless. Applies everywhere, all the time. Now, natural
all the
law...
time, all day, every day.
Yes. Natural law is a body of universal spiritual laws, it says, which act as the governing dynamics of consciousness. What we said that means is that it applies, everywhere, as in, as far as the eyes can see, and it is governing dynamics of consciousness. So we're going to explore what consciousness is, right? Because we didn't really define consciousness last time. We defined some of the other words, and we were kind of stuck, like, well, what is consciousness? So we're actually going to get into that today. And you'll see natural, again, means inherent, having a basis in nature, reality, and truth, not man-made or caused by humankind. And law is an existing condition, which is binding and immutable. So I figured to go just recover, based on those two things we talked about last time, because those are perhaps two of the most important slides that we covered. Definition, I think, is self-explanatory for most people. It's just trying to get more accurate with our definitions, which is our clarity of meaning on something.
Really dissecting a word.
Right.
Yes, correct.
And we looked over solipsism, and that was just an example of something we defined. And we defined it as a lone self, me as the center of the universe. So that was just a good example of a definition that we will come back to. So if you don't, see where solipsism plays in yet, that's okay, because we're going to get there. So
cool.
Let's continue where we are. Discovery versus belief, it says. Alrighty. So, alright. We talked a bit about perception, and we talked a bit about truth, right? And we talked about the wavelengths and trying to align the two. Belief. Where does belief fit into this? Do you think belief matters in the face of law? Do you think belief matters when it comes to the workings of the world?
Well, I think, this whole entire thing that we've been educating myself on is belief is different than knowing. It's, so if you believe in something, it's more like It's more like you trust your gut and your intuition on this. So do you believe in the law? Do you believe in this concept? Do you believe in this? I think it's what you think is what is best and what you can follow your heart to be the best option. I don't know if this is answering your question. But I think it really comes down to what what you were educated on, and what your heart is telling you, and what is to be the best result.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
So you're in a way saying like beliefs are dependent on the knowledge we currently have?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So is knowledge then more important than belief, or how could we discern the two, perhaps?
Is knowledge more what than belief?
More important? Is there a difference between knowledge and belief?
I think there's definitely a difference between knowledge and belief, because you don't need to believe what you know. What the knowledge. Wait a second. No, because you want to believe in the knowledge that you were taught. Right?
But why? Right. So, but why should I believe in something if I know it to be true? If you know something to be true, right? Do you have to believe in it? You can't. You don't have to believe in it because you know it's true.
True. Yeah.
So that puts belief out of the picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you should just know it. That know, both K and OW.
If you can know.
Kind of, if you can. I think that overrules everything. I think that really is the answer in a way.
Okay.
I'm confused about this whole entire question. The way that you worded it was a little off.
Okay.
For me.
Well, can belief be bad? I think this might bridge a big gap here. So can belief be bad?
Can belief be bad if you're taught or if you were indoctrinated into the wrong belief? But I feel
could it be dangerous, having certain beliefs?
It could be dangerous. I don't know, because everyone has different beliefs, and they all live their life depending on their beliefs and what they know on those. I mean, we know that beliefs and knowing is two different things, right?
It's
So
interesting how you use knowledge to describe belief. Isn't that interesting? See,
yeah,
and I think this goes back to what we talked about the other show, just sort of getting wrapped around those two, because just having to describe it, we're trying to find a definition. So we're trying to get clear and distinct as to what it is. So we're
yeah,
trying to find a knowledge in belief, which is why belief is such a hard term to define. And if you look in the dictionary for the definition of belief, it's not the easiest thing, because it could be seen as faith, right? It could also be seen as something not knowing, and so you believe because you don't know. So do you see the different perspectives of it?
kind of.
Okay, so let's think, right? So if there's a law of nature, any law that's always happening, could I believe that that doesn't exist? That law. Like
Does
density. Think density or perspective or thermodynamics, but I think density is the easiest to understand, right? So
yeah,
something falls because its mass is heavier than
right,
air. So
yeah.
um, yeah, and the same thing, right, with gravity, however you want to put it. But but the thing is, does it matter what I believe about that? Like, if I believe that not to be true, does that matter?
To you, I think it matters, but does anyone else care? I mean, they should have an open heart to, listen to what your beliefs are. It doesn't mean that they have to agree with it or not. But I think you have the right to believe in what you want to believe in, what you want to know, what
Of
you think
course,
is
of course. So,
correct.
but the law works on its own, right? Because like the laws, they don't have. It's not a person. The laws, they're workings,
They're invisible. You really don't see them.
right?
They're not textile. They're just
Yeah.
put into your mind. It's ideas, it's concepts. They're not in front of you unless it's, unless it's like concepted, is that a word, made into something that is that is in front of you, that was influenced by said law, said invisible thing. But the word law is invisible. We don't see law. We just act upon it. We obey it,
Hmm.
but we don't see it. Doesn't mean that you don't believe it though, or that you just know that it's there because it's just something that you know to your heart, that's something that you should follow.
Okay. Yeah.
I
So
think, in
yeah,
a way, in a sense.
I think you're grasping it. Because the point of me mentioning belief is the fact that if these laws are working on their own all the time, it doesn't matter what we believe, because what we believe is irrelevant to these laws if they're always going to be at work, if they're always all around us. And I say the word
Yeah.
if, right? Because we haven't explored yet what these laws are and how they work in the world. So I don't expect you to believe how exactly they work. So I say if, just to put it into an equation. So um, what I'm saying is like belief is not as relevant as knowledge, because knowledge is something we can know, whereas belief might not be true.
Yeah, I think knowledge overpowers it because it's something that you know. It's indefinite.
Yeah.
Well, it's definite. It's kind of
Yeah.
right in front of you. You've proven it in a way. Is it proof? Is proven the right word?
So maybe this, because you like pictures, right? So I'm going to show you
Yeah.
this.
Okay.
Here's a slide. Belief is, and there's a guy jumping off a cliff. And he's saying, I don't believe. Now, that's not the end of his sentence. Okay. The next slide, in gravity, right? So he doesn't believe in gravity, and so he thinks he can fly. He thinks that he can survive jumping off a cliff. That's his belief.
Right.
So, but that belief is irrelevant, as it says on the slide, because the laws dictate how that will work, and that law dictates that he will fall. He's not going to fly. He's not going to live. Right? So the laws are dictating his behavior into saying, well, this is what's going to happen to you, whether you like it or
Hmm.
not.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of just feeding him information that is going to
Well,
eventually.
if he learns from it,
Yeah.
like if he
Okay.
survives this, then he should learn from this behavior that, yeah, probably jumping off cliffs isn't a good idea. And that's
Right.
because he now has the knowledge that he gets hurt if he does that, and that he can't fly, and that he can't live jumping off a cliff.
Okay.
And that's because the laws taught him, the laws of nature. Does that make sense?
I mean, he's learning from his mistakes?
Yeah, he's
From
learning
his
from
fault?
his mistakes that were bound by law. So what that means is the laws of gravity here in this case, right? They dictate that.
But wait. When is he learning it? When is he learning it?
Well, if he survived this, jumping off the
Right.
cliff, right? So if he
Yeah.
survived it, he'd say, "Oh shoot, I got hurt. I shouldn't have done that because I thought
Yeah.
I could have lived. I thought I could have I could have flied,
Yeah.
off the cliff."
Flew.
And that was his belief.
Flew.
Yeah, flew.
Flied. Okay.
So that's just his belief, but does the universe care about it? No, because the universe runs by laws. The laws dictate what will happen to him whether he likes it or not. So if he understood these laws before jumping off the cliff, then he probably wouldn't have jumped off the cliff, right?
Yeah. Okay. Or just have common sense.
Yeah, having common sense.
Because like if you know that if you don't have wings like a bird, if you haven't, let's say you're in a fictional book and let's say you grow wings, yeah, then you would know because I'm like this other thing next to me that has wings and they can go up in the sky, but I don't have that, so I'm not going to be able to fly and do things.
Right.
So when I see something that is not going to give me that opportunity, probably best not to explore it because it's probably going to be detrimental at the end. But
so that, I think you hit it on the nail there with common sense, because we're going to go over that. Knowledge of law is something that we've done as humans, all of us, in some way, and which is why I say like people know natural law without even using the word. Like it's wrong to jump off a cliff. Everybody knows this generally, so it is common sense. But why do they know it? It's because they know the laws of what will happen. They know what will happen to them, and that what will happen to them is dictated by something. Something has to dictate how that will happen, right? Just like anything in science. Science is supposed to describe how everything happens in the world, right? How our bodies digest a certain food, how certain things work. You can consider those all laws of nature, and we just simply have to grasp it and understand what are those laws. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it.
So for this case, we're looking at natural law dictating the consequences to our behavior. This is an example. Somebody jumping off a cliff. Their consequences to them believing that they can is them getting hurt.
Yep, and ultimately almost dying. Yeah.
So natural law, like I said, applies to all the other laws of nature. It's something that we just have to understand. And you'll see there's other names for natural law, and then it will make more sense to you. So let's move on here, and we'll go from there. So I want to go back to the idea of consciousness, okay? So because we are trying to define natural law as much as possible, and I gave an example of a situation that had the consequences to our behavior. It did say the dynamics of consciousness. So based on our ideas of learning, right? That was the first thing we talked about on these episodes with you. The first episode was about learning. How do we learn the knowledge and become aware of the requirements? Yeah, I can add to that though. I can add to that question.
Add to? I was gonna have you take a few words away. Okay, go ahead. No, finish your thought. I don't want to.
Well, I think this will tie it together. That's why I wanted to add to it.
Okay.
Is there a natural ability to perceive truth and be aware, and thus see the requirements and learn the knowledge?
Run that by me one more time, Chief.
Right.
Slower.
So here, I'll connect the two questions, and I'll run them right by. How do we learn the knowledge and become aware of the requirements? Is there a natural ability to perceive truth and be aware? Now, what are we talking about, right? What are we talking about? What did I say that we were trying to define?
Well, we were trying to define consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you see consciousness?
By awakening what is in you, kind of, but also self-discovering, but also
Okay.
sprinkling in some knowledge, sprinkle in some intuition, sprinkle in some
Okay.
um
Good points. Good points.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't expect you to pinpoint. So you see
Yeah.
consciousness um, as this. What do you see it as? What is it? What role does consciousness have? Do we have consciousness? Do you have consciousness?
Yeah.
You
I
do.
would believe well, I mean, when I think of consciousness, I think that we are alive, we are aware, we
Oh.
are well equipped with the ability and the tools to keep going
Hmm.
because we're conscious. Where if you're unconscious, like let's say in the hospital, you're kind of just like unconscious, you're
Ah.
literally just flatlined, not really flatlined, but you're not there, you're not aware,
Right.
not aware.
True.
So consciousness, I think that you are more awoken, you're more educated, but you're kind of just you're there, you're observing.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So very good points. Right. So
Okay, thank you.
let me ask you the questions again and remember what you just said. Okay. How do
Okay.
we learn the knowledge and become aware of the requirements? Is there a natural ability to perceive truth and be aware? So, that second question I just asked, is there a natural ability to perceive truth and be aware? You just
Yes.
stated that consciousness is this ability to be aware of your environment. So, you answered the question. That natural ability is consciousness.
Yeah.
So we learn knowledge and become aware of the requirements, but we need consciousness first. Could a bird can learn, right? A bird can learn. Any animal can learn. Do you think humans? But humans have a maybe a more special ability to learn, right? Perhaps, or maybe
I
we don't
think
know.
I think we're very intelligent beings, but I think animals have a whole nother spectrum of knowledge that we don't understand because
Right.
we're not them. I feel like we don't share the same. I guess it's is it genes or cell, like you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like we don't share certain things, but yet we do. We do, and we all live in the same ecosystem. We all live in the same um, Earth. We live in the same
Yes.
environment, and so we correlate in some things, but also I feel like we don't understand certain things about each other. And I think birds or animals have different knowledge caps than humans do,
Okay.
and vice versa.
Right.
But I'm curious to what your definition of consciousness is, because
Okay.
I mean, I know we're
Sure.
trying to define it. I don't know if that's what this whole entire thing is trying
Right.
to develop into. Is that what we're developing into? Am
Yeah.
I jumping the gun?
No, no, no. You're doing good because I think I'm just like planting the seed here for like what you see consciousness is because I do
Yeah.
believe that you know the answer to this, and I
Yeah.
think you did state it. Like I said, I think you did state it. You said natural ability, and you said you used an example. I like that, the hospital, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
unconscious, it's like you're not aware of what's
You're
happening
never
around
aware.
you, and then you wake up and you're like, whoa, shoot, what's happening? Um,
Yeah.
and maybe you are. Maybe your body is still like there, but at the moment, but maybe your mind isn't, right? And so we're gonna explore that. Since you asked for it, let's actually go through the definition that's provided here.
Sure.
So um, let's go here. Consciousness, the ability of a being to recognize patterns and meaning with respect to events taking place, both within oneself and in the realm in which the self exists and operates. Now, an easier way to put this is the natural human ability to be aware or to simply um, understand themselves, their own environment, and the world that they live in,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So
So I
there's
mean,
different
pretty
ways
much.
to word this.
I think that was under the TP for sure. I think that was under the same criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you're self-aware of what's existing around you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I think that correlates for sure.
Yeah. So let's go back to the idea of belief just because I like to tie things together.
Yeah.
Human belief is completely irrelevant when it comes to the existence and operation of natural law, just as it is irrelevant in relation to any of the other laws of nature. Right? And we talked about this a little bit last time. Some of these laws of nature include inertia, momentum, thermodynamics, electromagnetism, because we can observe them everywhere. They're always there and they cannot be denied. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're observable, they're experimental, and they're understandable by everybody if they have the
And
knowledge.
And you live through them every day, and you feel
Yes.
them. Like, you physically feel it, or you are physically involved with it, I
Right.
think, is another big thing that makes you...
Well, you were right. They're invisible, right? I mean, they're things we put
Yeah,
titles on.
true.
But those titles are to observe these bigger phenomenons. So it says,
Yeah.
similar to other phenomena of nature, the workings of natural law require no belief in order for them to be discovered and known. So what that means is that it doesn't belief is not going to help you understand natural law. Knowledge will, right? Because in order to understand what will happen to you or what the consequences of your behavior are, if we base that all on belief, then we're probably going to get hurt because knowledge is what's going to tell us what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
then we have this quote here, and I think this guy is Swedish. I'm not sure. Soren Kierkegaard, if I probably didn't say that right. There's a quote. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what is not true. The other is to refuse to accept what is true. So let's try to look at that again if you have to.
Two ways to be fooled.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Right.
Fooled. One is to believe what is not true. The other is to refuse to accept what is true. Oh my gosh, so many play on words. Like, I feel like it's like a puzzle and a riddle at the same time.
So,
like, oh, let's dissect all this. And no, I think it's, these people are geniuses. And the fact that, like, I mean, there's no date on this, but I'm assuming obviously it's really, really, I don't want to say ancient, but it's old, right? And these people back then understood this. And it's sad that not many people nowadays, I mean, are learning this or following this. And so it's very interesting that back then they had a true belief system of this, even back then, and then we're trying to awaken it even further now.
Right. Now, like you said, right, that some of this is common sense, though people do know it, but it's how we bring this knowledge then and expand upon it that we have to question. What do we do with this knowledge, and are we actually following what we say ourselves? If we agree that, yeah, you know, we should know the world we live in, that we should know the consequences to our actions, do we, you know, we got to make sure that we're not partaking in actions that are actually promoting wrongdoing. We want to make sure that what we do, we actually know how it impacts the world, and we're not just ignorant of it, or we just believe otherwise. So that's what he's saying here. Refuse to accept what is true. What does that sound like? Ignorance.
Ignorance, yeah.
We talked about that. And we talked about that, remember?
Yeah, we did. Yep,
yeah.
The bell curve. Yeah.
Yeah, so
right?
ignorance...
Is that part of the bell curve? Is that part of the bell curve?
The bell curve was too open-mindedness and too closed-mindedness. That was being right in the middle. Okay. When we talked about ignorance, we defined ignorance versus nescience, or nescience, which is, nescience is if the knowledge isn't there to begin with, so we can't attain it. We can't even understand it. But ignorance is if the knowledge is there, we're just refusing to accept it. So we're basically in denial, you know? So, but, right, so we could have that situation of ignorance, or we could believe something that's not true. And that goes back to the idea that we mentioned before, negative knowledge. What if somebody's being fed lies, but they think it's true? Then they might be fully living on belief, because they don't actually know for themselves if it's true.
Oh, that's too close to home about everything that's going on in the world. Yeah, no, that, I think that right there is very powerful as it is. Wow.
Okay.
And should be touched upon more, because it's interesting what you can learn outside what you were taught, you know, back then, even now.
So, now going back to consciousness. So, I'm going to word this in another way. So we're recognizing patterns, we're connecting dots within our environment around us, and this is the concept that all of us living beings have, this ability to be conscious. So I'm going to show you a diagram, since you also like more pictures. And
visual learner.
Let's see here. Expressions of consciousness. Right? So this is to represent the Trinity, or however you want to put it. You'll see on the left-hand side with the body, with the actions, it's masculine. That's the triangle that's standing up. This could take some time to understand. And it's fine if you don't. You don't have to look at all the symbols and get all confused with everything and how they're angled and all that, right? So just remember that masculine is the body, its actions. Feminine, which is the right side of this, the downward triangle, is spirit, its emotions. It's the feminine. And the mind is the thoughts. So that is what makes up consciousness. If we wanted to put a general sum of to what consciousness consists of actions, emotions, and thoughts. And we have to question, they do interact with one another, don't they?
Oh yeah, no, I think they all correlate. Absolutely, and they all work together. It makes a full circle.
Body and spirit, right? And we said these are spiritual laws. So
body, I think, body's the physical. Is spirit the law?
You're getting on it. You're catching on really easy.
We don't see the spirit unless the spirit, think of it as a ghost spirit. If ghosts have the power to move things, then that's proof, or that's somewhat of an energy source that is trying to signal something.
And we don't
right?
see the laws, right? The laws are invisible.
Oh yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Spirit
and emotions, they're not that visible either.
Even mind. Mind is different than brain or cranial or brain. Or head, brain, cranial is all physical. The mind, I guess it's a broader term, but can you see the mind?
Right.
Because it's
right. The mind seems a bit more complicated.
I think the mind is also another. It could be just like a tier of a law, like a tier.
Yeah, for sure. So that is the general sense for the three expressions of consciousness, right? So without showing you, I'm not going to test you.
Really, chat.
No, I wasn't going to test you.
Test me. It's okay.
I wasn't going to test you.
It's really locked and loaded in my head. It's okay.
Body, masculine action, spirit, feminine emotion, thoughts, mind. These are just some ideas to explore. I don't expect you to agree with them or so forth yet. Of course, we're still going into things.
I'm going to agree with them because I think they correlate and they are, I think, very true. And it, to me, in my head, it makes a lot of sense based on what we're learning, based on what I've experienced, based on how I'm a very awoken person past 3 years. And so, I think it all kind of just correlates and it makes perfect sense. The thing is when I see that, I don't know if you want to go back so chat can see, but everyone's going to think, oh, the Illuminati eye. I think because obviously it's a meme in our century now, oh my God, Illuminati. But I think, does Mark go into something, or does natural law teach something about what is significant about the eye?
Because so I have a video dedicated to this because a lot of people have asked me. I have a video, and it's also the logo for the One Great Work Network. So I have a video titled What the Symbol Means. It's actually, the name of the video is Symbol Meaning of One Great Work Network or something like that. Okay. You'll see it. It's on the thumbnail. And to briefly describe what this is, so I would say this is a Freemasonic logo. It's been used across many different traditions. Okay. Yeah, many different traditions. Well, it's actually one of the most popular sigils is what they call it. In mystery traditions and mystery schools. So you consider it like an occult symbol. Not a cult symbol, a occult symbol, which is something that people have used to express knowledge. The eye has always been a symbol for seeing, right? For being aware, so being conscious. And that's why I was just gonna say that. And that's why it's there for the slide expressions of consciousness. So what the eye can perceive is generally representative for the light. What enlightens you? What knowledge is going to empower you? And the knowledge is power. So that is light that you're feeding yourself. If you were in darkness, you don't have knowledge, and therefore the eyes are closed. And so the eye is a very powerful symbol through all the traditions because it was seen as that source of light or knowledge or enlightenment and power. Correct. Right? So that's why it's at the top of the pyramid.
The only reason why I'm bringing it up is because I feel like a lot of people are just going to automatically jump to the gun and say, oh wow, this is Illuminati. Do I trust this? Because if you're a memester or you follow any type of influencer, they always think the Illuminati is like aliens or something bad or something in the negative forces. And so I just want to clarify that, like, no, everything has I don't want to say double meaning, but everything has something to be looked into, and explore your knowledge, explore what deeper meanings behind things, because it may
Right.
not be what you really think. Yeah.
So let's explore this, right? Talking about consciousness and in different beings, and you even like brushed upon it. You know, us comparing our species with other species, right? Because we want to get defined with this knowledge. So let's go a little bit into the brain, because we talked about that part about the mind and the thoughts. So what makes the human brain different from other species in regards to the expression of consciousness? Right. So
I think your
I'll go.
environment has.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll go
sorry.
back to the slide, and that way you can look at it if you want. But what
Okay.
makes us different from other species? Go ahead.
Well, I think your environment has a huge play. I mean, and how you were built, the genes are in your body. So a fish is a completely opposite of what you have. I mean, they don't have lungs, they have gills. They live underwater, they don't. So I mean, there's a lot of
in hell is happening?
Adaptation that they have versus us, right? And so I think their brains are equipped, wired, created based on based on the way that was intended to be for them, because they are a fish. I feel like I feel like I'm not making a point here, but versus us humans, yes, we're very intelligent, but I feel like there's other creatures that have intelligence in other aspects based on what they have to do with in their everyday life, like the wild, for instance. They are focusing on just hunting and killing and making sure they can get their next meal, where we are given, you know, because we have conveniences. I mean, depending on where you live, obviously, where many people are more fortunate than others, and so where I mean, I'm going to say me, I'm very fortunate to be in a beautiful place in my life where things are conveniently made for me. So I don't need to go out and hunt. I don't need to go and do certain things that an animal would do. And so I don't need to acquire that knowledge unless I really have to. And it becomes to be that in that scenario. Does that make any sense?
No, that makes sense. So you're saying we have different roles in nature, perhaps, than other
Yeah, I think I'm
beings?
going more towards the role. I don't know if I'm really answering your question. Probably not.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, so let's focus on the brain then, right? Like, I mean, you might. I don't expect
I'm
you
sorry,
to.
my child.
Yeah, it's all
My
good.
child. No, hot in the lights. I don't want him to get electrocuted.
It's okay.
I'm
People
sorry.
love Buddy.
We don't want him to get electrocuted nor fried
Yeah.
chicken tonight.
So, um, do you hear
Hold
me?
on, I'm sorry. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So,
I'm sorry. Hold on. Intermission. Okay.
so
All right.
the human
Okay.
brain.
I'm so sorry.
The human brain.
Yes.
Your brain is bigger than your bird's, right? It's not going to say that we're
Inside.
smarter. It's not. That's not to say
No.
that we're smarter or whatever.
No.
But in size, yeah, it is. And there's probably some. If we look at the anatomy, right, it's probably quite different. It's not the same. So let's actually do that. And I don't expect you to know, but do you know any of the main parts of the human brain in particular?
I know that there is a it's been a while since I took my biology course. It's been a couple thousand years.
Yeah.
No, I know there's a front cortex, some other type of cortex. There's a main. Oh my God, everyone
You're
in
on
chat
it.
who's like
You're getting
biology.
it.
I feel like everyone who
You got it.
is biology or has a decent degree in anything is like cringing. Some type of cortex. We have a stem that literally feeds our nervous. Like literally everything is connected.
Darn, that's pretty. That's better than what I could do. I'll be honest.
I know that there is like your third eye is right here. And you tell me this, and I can't remember. I want to say it's gonna bother me when you say it. I'm gonna be like, ugh! You know what I mean? But
I'll just show you a picture.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna get so mad because I know it. I can't speak English, so.
So here you go. Here's a picture. Brain structure and behavior. And you got it because you said cortex, which
Oh,
is one of the very important parts of the brain. And you said there's a stem, right? Obviously that holds up the brain. And so it's very important, especially for blood flow and so forth, as you might know. So,
yeah,
but we have three main components mainly. There's of course smaller components in between and all these other stuff we want to look at, and yeah, you could say the third eye as well, but and also I think it's the eye of Horus, the symbol.
pineal gland. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the pineal gland is the third eye. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Okay.
And that
I'm
is
like,
really important for a lot of people. It's important for a
oh,
lot
okay.
of people. And some people might want to say that's the neocortex, just in like when it's used properly. That is what our neocortex is. Like it's that
Okay.
pineal gland, and I'll go back to that since you mentioned it. But
Sure.
it's mainly these main three components. So we have the neocortex, and the brainstem and the limbic brain, which is the mammal brain. So
Oh,
the reptile
yeah.
brain is the brainstem, and the human brain is neocortex, because that's what sort of makes us more special, right? Because it's called the human brain. So that's why
Yes.
we look at this. We're only particularly looking at this because we have some component that humans seem to have that other animals don't seem to have as much, and that is that
Girl.
neocortex. So it's the higher order thinking. You know, we're the only species in the world that will commit war against one another, go out of our way to create religions and money and all this stuff. Other animals don't do that. And you have the question, well, it is cool what we've built. We built
Yeah.
skyscrapers and towers up to the sky. Like, that's crazy.
We're very
And
innovative.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I think great power could be used for great things, but that could be good or bad, right?
Until
So,
your ego gets in the way. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
And or you get corrupt because you have too much power. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we have the question, are we using our human brain, all of us as a human species? Are we put into different ways of thinking? How does it affect our brain health? All these questions that might come from this, right? Is higher
Yeah.
order thinking. Is everybody thinking, like an average psychologist, IQ 200? Who are thinking
No,
like that? you know is the people who do like to think like that, are they going to have some brain imbalances of their own? So we're going to question all this, and so just to sort of recap this, I'm going to read the slide. It says brain health plays a critical role in human behavior, so it is extremely important for human beings to become familiar with the brain's basic structure and function. The three main complexes comprise the human brain: the R complex, or the reptilian brain. So just going back to the diagram, that's the stem. Okay, this part here,
Yeah.
the survival part of the brain.
Or like you could think of it as the tree trunk.
Yeah,
Literally the thing that holds it all
right,
together.
the
And
roots.
it has the rings. I mean, if you cut down the tree, you see the rings of life of how many years it's lived, the wet years, the dry
Yeah,
years, and so that can be very, very symbolic too.
right.
And food,
Interesting.
it's so interesting, and I love to learn about how. I mean, I know this is going on topic, but like walnuts are literally shaped like the brain, and so the fact that walnuts are very brain healthy. I
Honestly,
mean,
yeah.
there's so many things in nature that are very correlated, and
Hmm.
it's insane. Look up foods and like
Kidney
if anyone
beans.
has kidney beans, or just look up how like there's certain foods that look and will feed the same identical organ in your body. Look it up. Look it on Google, Bing, whatever, DuckDuckGo if you want to do something that's not as censored. But yeah, look it up and you guys would be fascinated. It's really cool. Walnuts was one of the ones that really got me because it was like, wow, if you put two walnuts together, like the flat ends together, it literally looks like a human brain. And the fact that walnuts are literally brain healthy, it literally feeds your brain, is just mind blowing. Okay, continue what you were saying. I'm
No,
sorry.
that was a great point, and I think
A
people
little
could
food
do
for thought.
research on that. If they do have to feed a certain part of their body, I think everything is self-reflective in nature. And I say I think, but we're going to go over some of the principles that are in natural law that
Yeah,
dictate that, because things are self-similar. in nature, meaning that the things that are inside our body is what we see in our world out and about. So this is just an example, good example. I like that.
And mushrooms in ears. Okay.
Honestly, you're mentioning very good examples because I'll have to use them in future shows. So
Aw,
that was the
that means a
reptilian
lot.
brain. The reptilian brain is a stem, which facilitates basic survival functions. So survival, right? And I want to mention something to you since you're into health, right? So you know about flight or fight, right? Stress
Flight
hormones,
or fight. Yes.
right? And you know that most of society is stressed. So you might correlate
Especially
that to
nowadays.
this. You might correlate that to this, where people might be stuck in the survival mode, maybe using a lot of their reptilian brain because they're constantly in survival, and maybe forgetting the other parts of the brain or not using them as much as their function intends, right? Because nature calls for a balance. It calls for
Yeah.
a balance. At the end of the day, it seeks balance. Not that we have to follow through with it, but if we do, we will become balanced, and thus the world will become balanced. So
Right.
the reptilian brain is basic survival functions. That's the stem of the brain. Then we have
What
the
do you think?
limb. Yeah.
I'm sorry, just one really quick
Yes. No.
question.
Please.
Would you consider panic part of um the fight or flight?
So this is where we come in with the limbic system, which is I'm going to introduce right here. It says facilitates human emotion, right? So that will be expressed through the reptilian brain, but then the reptilian brain is then going to also express through the mammalian brain because you have that internal fear and that expresses through your facial reactions and your emotions. So right, so we have both of
Well,
these two combined.
yeah, well, the only reason why I'm saying that is because we're living in a world, especially nowadays, of just panic and stress, and literally we're just fed into something that everyone is just going to cave into what the use my words wisely, but the hierarchy or whatever the higher people are saying because they're feeding the information to them. And so if it's scaring them, of course they're going to listen to them because they are playing the saviors. And so there was a point to what I was trying to get to because you mentioned it before about the flight or flight and how we react to certain ways based on that. And so it can definitely correlate what's happening now based on with the COVID and stuff like that. How people are very scared and panicked, and I understand that. But also you need to consider what is, happening with your own body and listen to your body. The person on TV can't know you, doesn't know you. Yes, it's telling you what the masses may be living through, but um, listen to your body.
If you're constantly in fear, though, constantly being stressed, are you living life?
No,
Yeah.
you're literally draining your adrenals. You're draining your energy because you are panicked, and you're not living life at the fullest because you're in just a state of uncertainty. You're in a state of just um, not balanced, I mean unbalanced, and just nothing that is going to find you pure happiness. And so to set you free, you may have to find some other options or outlets.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Very good points. So yeah, to answer your question, it's the mix here. I'll go back to the slide of the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain. We feel that internal fear from knowing something that it's there, it's threatening us, it's pressuring our lives. So we have this instinct, you may call it, to be in this fear or survival mode, and thus it then expresses our or affects our emotions. And if we could become emotionally unstable, think somebody who's been through trauma, constant states of fear, constant states of survival, how is that going to affect them emotionally? It could be very difficult to express their
Yeah.
emotions. So these brain components are all very connected. And thank you to those in the chat. We'll keep in touch. So as we move on, trust me, we will. I'll go talk to you guys after the show and all that, and I thank you for staying tuned to Crystal's Twitch and my Twitch. I appreciate it. So
Aw.
the limbic system is the mammalian brain, and that is this part, which is the center part of the brain, this part here. Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
So and like I can't say one's next to the pineal gland or not. Obviously they're all connected. They all work with one another, and it's hard to say. For one scenario, obviously the brain's gonna utilize all its organs at once. If it didn't, then it probably wouldn't be the brain that it is. So every part is always at work. It's just a question of, like I said, if we're using them to its highest capability or as nature intends. So
now, are we using our brain in its ability?
yeah.
Is there parts of the brain that we have not touched because we are not that we haven't you know what I'm trying to get at?
Haven't tapped into it enough.
Tapped in. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Like we can tap into utilizing circulation, utilizing our legs, right? Or we can sit back and say, well, I'm not going to utilize my legs that much, and then soon my leg loses circulation, and now I have to get surgery, or now I have to do like some strict thing.
I was thinking of more towards like, if you follow mythology, there was a lot of I mean species that had magical, I don't want to say magical powers because that may add like a little bit too fluffiness of it,
Right.
but like had things and energies, let's say energies, that they were able to enforce and able to produce because of what their brain and their but also if you believe in mythology or not, you know what I mean? So it's like, have we devolved in because of that? Like, because I mean, us humans, we don't have that ability to, have a magical sense. Yes, I feel like humans have developed, like, I feel like meditation is magical because you're literally tapping into something of just freeing yourself and giving yourself complete peace and serenity, right? And you're healing at the same time. So I feel like that is a magical aspect, but I'm thinking of something more maybe sci-fi that maybe, I don't know. I just feel like there's always endless possibilities to no matter what there is in life. And so the brain can be one of those things that possibly, maybe, who knows, that we have maybe not had tapped into it completely because of maybe there's just some type of thing that's blocking it based on what we were indoctrinated into, or maybe the way that we have just been evolving as humans or devolving, however you want to say it, because I know there's both ends of the spectrums that people like to believe in, either evolving or de-evolving based on what you believe in from the past to present, right? So
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So, and just to go over the human brain then, because obviously you're using it right now.
Yeah.
So, higher order thinking, thinking about everything, evolution, economics and mathematics, all this stuff.
Mhm.
The typical animal in the wild probably doesn't want to go to the hospital, do surgery, replace body parts with mechanical legs, and so forth. So I'm just saying the humans have grown to be very complex. Call that evolution or just growing up and becoming more aware through time and developing sciences, as you wish. And I think, that is something that people could talk about. And,
Sure.
some people might limit our ways of thinking among that. But there are certain things that we can know, and that is what is here all around us all the time. So the brain structure is something we all have, something that we can observe. Like I said, basic anatomy. Somebody could actually take the skull of a human being and, find out what this looks like. They can do a brain scan and find out what it looks like. So, yeah, this is something we can observe. So the human brain is the neocortex, and it facilitates higher thought functions and conscience. Now, I think neocortex is a pretty special word. I think you can break that down into some sort of Latin roots or whatever, but generally speaking, it's higher thought functions
Have
and
you
conscience.
have you broken it down
I
into
think I've
Latin?
done it before, but I can't recall right now.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on the spot either. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sure you could just look it up. So,
Do you want me to do a quick Google search really quick?
nah, it's all right. I want to move on. So,
Mhm.
we have the reptile brain, mammal brain, human brain. Okay, so just the general aspects, and we're gonna move on with that knowledge. So, how about the two brain hemispheres? You've heard of that too, right? Maybe left brain, right brain.
Left brain and right brain, yes. Feminine versus
Hmm.
masculine.
Oh, okay. So you already
Mhm.
have some grasp on it.
Yeah, is one like nature versus nurture?
No.
Or is that no?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's a
That makes
whole different thing in science.
right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, is there a difference between analytical thinking, action, and intuitive compassion, or holistic thinking and emotion? Let me.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I could probably rephrase that, but
Well, I mean, compassion I think is more feminine.
okay.
Uh, uh, throw out more words that you said.
Yeah. So, intuitive compassion or holistic thinking and emotion. Okay.
I feel like that's feminine because
Right.
holistic is more nurturing. I feel like the motherly figure, the
So yeah, you
female
already know about this.
Okay, I'm sorry. Am I jumping the gun? You gotta
No,
tell me when I'm
no,
jumping
you
the gun.
got this. So human brain right here, like I said, connecting the previous ideas with the consciousness, you got it. So that's why I was just like, boom, okay, you got it. You're done. You
Yes,
got
chat.
it.
We're moving up in the
So
world, chat,
if
and we're doing
people,
it
yeah,
together.
feel free to do research on this, of course, if you want to verify on your own means. But the left brain is the intellect, is what we can call it, the masculine part, which is what most people call it, and it is could be represented by the up facing strong triangle. That's why it's up facing. And some people use these triangles to describe elements. I'm not sure if you
Oh,
ever seen that
yeah,
before.
yeah.
Right.
One is like fire, one's
Yes.
water.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So and notice like, the earth is going to be obviously solid. The
Yeah.
water is going to be not
Fluid.
solid, but it's going to be level, right? So
Fluid.
yeah. Yeah, so there's certain ways that we express it through symbols of what we can call archetypes. That's what an archetype is. It's a symbol. So like a circle would represent like a connection, a unity, a completeness.
Balance.
A square would be rigid, right? Because it has these angles that are just boxed in. So we're like boxed in, rigid thinking, can't think outside the box. And that's why it's a box. And then we have the triangle, which represents usually a synthesis. So the angles are one in a harmony with one another. So these are just some archetypes. And then you see in the middle of this picture, we're bringing the two archetypes together. And this is the symbol of unity, of bringing aspects together. Now, I know a lot of people viewed this through so many different nations and stuff, but this is because the nations have adopted it based on the mystery traditions. We've taken a lot of things in our day-to-day life based on traditions, based on symbolism, based on mythology, Freemasonry, so forth. So, but generally speaking, regardless of even looking at the symbols, we can know for a fact the left brain is masculine, right brain is feminine. And so the left brain is going to have more logic, analytical thought, science, and math. Right brain, creativity, holistic thought, and compassion.
Yeah.
So,
which makes total sense.
Yeah, and now connecting that to consciousness, do we kind of see how that might make more sense too?
Yeah, I think so.
The mind is the middle, remember?
Mind is the middle, yes.
So let me go back to the other diagram. See this one? So the mind, thoughts, middle, think, neocortex, right? Neocortex is higher thoughts. So then we have on the left-hand side actions, masculine, right side emotion, spirit. So we have left brain, right brain, center, which is thoughts, mind, bringing it together. Because think about it. If you are going to act in the world, those actions come from your thoughts. The thoughts start the action. Everything starts with a thought, with the mind, intention. So that is where we can kind of connect some of these ideas of consciousness, and we'll go a little bit more into that. So looking at this diagram, perhaps we need a balance of these brain hemispheres. And so this is represented for the whole neocortex. So what you saw here from this diagram, this neocortex, right? We're looking at the side of the brain just to look at all the parts. But this whole part here consists of the left and right brain. We're just looking on it on its side so we can see all the parts. Okay? But, so we're looking at this on its side. We're looking like this, face straight down. So somebody, like, think of a camera, like, right on top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
yeah.
it's looking down.
I know that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, so but that's all the neocortex. So this left and right brain is all the neocortex. That's why it says the title of the slide is the human brain. Because the human brain is what? The neocortex.
But that's cut to have, that's cut in the middle, like profile like this.
Yeah, well, so we can see all the parts of the brain. That's why we did that.
Oh, but you're saying that, okay, no,
Yeah,
I
so
see what you're saying.
yeah, so this
Okay.
part is just the whole neocortex, the top
Okay.
of the brain. Yeah, so
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
right. So
Hmm.
I wanted to make that clear. Drink Blake, drink break, and so
Thank you.
how do we create this balance? How do you think we create this balance, between the logic and the creativity, the analytical thought, the holistic thought, and the science and math and the compassion? How do we create this balance?
Unity. Um. How do we create this balance? By incorporating it all, mixing everything in together, using it,
So let's think of it in a different way, right? So let's say somebody is imbalanced. Let's say they are left brain. This is easier to understand usually because most of the world is in more of a left brain mentality, or at least the way most people
I
view the
agree.
world.
I agree.
Now, because the right brain could be a little harder to understand by some degrees, which is why some people might need more of it. But the left brain is scientific, mathematic, right? So very analytical, always analyzing every little detail. So we're imbalanced on that left brain. If I want to create more of a balance with the right brain, what do I do?
I'm more humble.
So I perhaps learn to become more humble?
You learn, you educate yourself on maybe more hands-on work, maybe get more involved into nature, more involved in the home life, more involved into your roots of things, either the roots of nature, the roots of family, because I think that can all tie into creativity, holistic thoughts, and compassion. Because I mean, that's what I think of when I think of creativity, holistic thought, and compassion is home and family and nature,
Right.
friends, connections, positive, high vibrations.
Okay, so in a way you're saying add in the things you need to fulfill the missing spots that you currently have in your imbalance, or like trying to fill
That,
the gaps and try to bring back the balance by adding in the aspects that you need.
yeah. And just open your heart. I mean, I think you can open your heart either side. Open, if you're more right brain, open your heart into the more analytical thinking. But if you're left brain, maybe open your heart more into the holistic thought,
Hmm.
the holistic thinking.
Interesting
uh,
you say heart, because we're going to go to that too. Not that we're going to go through the whole chemistry of the heart and so forth, but
Please don't. I know
but
there's chambers. Yeah, but
yeah. So
imbalance.
but we do have to care, right? Care enough to do something, care enough to do anything. So whether move from right brain to left brain or left brain to right brain. So care is something we'll get into because we have to.
Yeah.
So adding in the crowd out is something we talked about in integrative nutrition, right? So if we're
Yes.
imbalanced, perhaps eating a standard American diet, it's full of processed foods, and we want
A
to
sad diet.
yes, standard American diet, and
Sad diet, people. Learn it. Don't eat it.
if we have that, right, we have this imbalance of processed foods. So let's see that as an imbalance because again, nature seeks this balance. Now we have to try to create more of that balance by adding in more of the foods that we
Good.
know are going to be good for us, that we
Yeah.
know are going to help us. So
Yes.
see it as such
Add
like
in
that.
add in add in the things that you know will benefit your body and flourish within, and eventually all the bad, negative, bad things will start to crowd out naturally.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we should do then, right? Is with the brain, is try to find the balance. Like a lot of people say, everything in nature sort of should seek that at the whole, macrocosmic of things. But it's trying to identify weaknesses, right? Or maybe extremes, which is imbalances, or maybe even tendencies. And that's how we can create the balance. If we understand that we have an imbalance, then we can create a balance. But we first have to understand that it's there. Remember what we talked about with problem solving?
Recognize the problem first before you solve it.
We have to first acknowledge that the problem is there, otherwise we can't solve it. So until we acknowledge that we're brain imbalanced, we can't create balance.
Do anything. Correct.
Yeah, so thus we have to recognize the weaknesses, extremes, or tendencies, which I like to, this is obviously my own input into these slides, but it's because it's essentially what we have to do if we want to create balance in the brain. What's our weaknesses? Well, if I'm too analytical, then I'm going to be probably kind of weak when it comes to caring for somebody as much as I can. In regards to feeling their emotions, or being creative with the knowledge that I have. And then extremes. So if I'm very analytical, I could probably be too analytical to the point where my whole life is just being consumed by numbers, maybe, or being everything is just so artificial. Everything is just materialistic.
And that can eat away at you. Anything of any aspect, anything too much of anything is going to eat away at you. And it's not too much. It's not. What am I trying to say? Something of too much is not always good.
Yeah.
Anything of too much is not too good. And just to focus on what you know is best for your body, because you know it's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything bad naturally will eventually naturally crawl out. Crawl out. Not crawl out too. Yeah, sure, why not? Crawl out.
Mm-hmm. So tendencies could also be, let's say I am left brain, I tend to constantly be thinking about numbers all day long. I tend to be into mathematics. I tend to be into atheism, whatever is associated with left brain. And same thing for right brain. So let's try to acknowledge some of that because it would be important. And so here's a slide. The neocortex of the brain has two hemispheres. This will kind of sum up what we've been saying. The left brain hemisphere largely facilitates logical and scientific thought, while the right brain hemisphere largely facilitates creativity and compassion. So already, by the sounds of it, this is why so many people, if you do look into this, left brain versus right brain, there's a lot of people who are promoting right brain because it sounds better, doesn't it? Like, oh, care, compassion, the world needs more care, people need to love each other. But it's still just one hemisphere of the brain. Could that be taken to a wrong extreme? It can, because if we're caring so much about other people, but we're not really thinking about what that entails and so forth, and you say, well, we shouldn't have to think to love one another. It's a feeling, right? We should just love somebody. We shouldn't have to overthink it and so forth. And I agree with that. So there's different ways we have to look at this. What is a right brain extreme? If left brain extreme is very scientific and mathematical, what is a right brain extreme? So we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at both extremes. Yeah, do you have any thoughts about what you think the right brain extreme will be? Since we
this is a subject that I'm really comfortable with. I mean, I know last episode I was kind of all over the place, but this is, I think, today's episode, which is what you said, episode number 5. I'm sorry, I messed up before. I'm more confident in this because this is stuff that I can relate to, and I think, I don't know, I just have a heavy heart on all this, so this is good. Like I feel very comfortable discussing this, and I feel like I have more input this episode. I mean, it's a round. Hello, I mean, it's round 5. Yay, level up. But no, I think it's very interesting because we can correlate so much from what we've learned in the past episodes. But I mean, I think this episode has really, I think I just know more of this topic.
Okay.
Because I feel like it's more understandable in a way, kind of. It's not too complex.
Yeah, I try to break it down as much as possible.
And you do a great job of it too. And I'm not saying this is you. This is me.
No, you're good.
My brain's not working.
No, you're good.
Both of my hemispheres are not talking to each other. I'm sorry.
Nobody should doubt themselves on anything. I will tell you that. Right brain hemisphere. Do you know any extremes that might happen in the right brain? It's okay if you don't.
Extremes?
Yeah. When I use the word extremes, I'm sorry. I mean imbalance. So if you're imbalanced in the right brain, what's like a tendency, or what's something you might think a lot about?
Oh, you may jump to conclusions. You may be more stubborn because you're more left brain, because your right brain is not. Are you
Oh,
saying because your
I'm talking about right brain imbalance alone.
right brain imbalance? So your right brain is not working,
Right.
like it's
So
not.
right.
Yeah. So then you would be more left
Oh,
brain.
I'm sorry. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what you're getting. Okay, so what
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean is you're using too much of your right brain and not enough of the left brain hemisphere. So your right brain imbalance and the fact that you're not using your left brain. So you're overdoing it on the right brain. That's what I want an example of. Because we
Meaning
did
you're
go over
too.
left brain already.
Would that be too naive if you're too right brain
Yes.
because you're
Yes.
okay?
How'd you come with that conclusion?
Um, because I think I'm a prime. I don't want to say I'm a prime example, but I feel like I'm more right brain than left brain because I'm not an analytical person. I am not all about numbers. I am not into the scientific world of things. I don't. I'm more the motherly hen. I am more the nurturing, very holistic healing, very like I resonate, and I feel like my everyday life is based on right side. And so me as a person, I feel like I could be naive to the fact that there's more things that need to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm naive against um that I have to take in statistics and take in analytics, and you know, yes, I have an open mind and an open brain, but that doesn't mean that my left brain is balanced with my right brain. You
Right.
know what I mean? I just have an open mind that's
Right.
different than your
So you mentioned a
cortexes
great
or your
point.
hemispheres.
The fact that we all have to work on our balance. We're not
Yeah,
perfect. We all have some
correct.
sort of imbalances, and we need to acknowledge what those might be or what they can be. I can definitely be too left brain sometimes if I am overthinking something, because I'm definitely always thinking about these concepts and, finding ways to teach others and so forth. So it could definitely get lost in the details or too detailed.
Yes.
And I think it's important that we do find that for everybody. So, great point on that. And I think people should look in their own lives to try to see what they're imbalanced with, to try to create more of a balance. And in the next episode, I think we're going to explore that way more in detail. So,
Cool.
when both hemispheres, when we have the left brain and right brain hemisphere, when they're both in balance, the neocortex acts in its proper role as the executive command center of the human brain. So what that means is the neocortex, when we have these hemispheres in balance, again, together in unity, left brain, right brain, intellect, intuition, masculine and feminine, together, we have this balance, and thus our neocortex is working as it's intended to do. It's our human brain. It's not meant to, become this super scientific thing or super religious, thing either. It's meant to try to create the balance between the two, because you'll notice the feuds between science and religion. You'll notice the feuds between people who are overly thinking about all the numbers and somebody who says, well, why do I need statistics? Why do I need evidence? So you're going to notice the war between these two sides. Or
Yeah.
even left brain versus right brain, the leader versus the person who's obeying all the time. And they're constantly at feud with one another. So this tells us a lot about our world that we live in when we observe these two hemispheres. So it says true intelligence is born when we create that balance. True intelligence. And this is described as intellect plus creativity. So intelligence, you can also break that down into its Latin roots. And a lot of people try to simulate intelligence and intellect, but they're two different things. Okay, because if we're saying intelligence is intellect plus creativity, then it's not just intellect; it's intellect plus creativity. So we have the word intelligence or intelligenere, generate, create. So intellect plus creativity. I'm sure you can break it down, and you can also look it up on an etymological dictionary in case you're interested.
Say that word again. What was that word?
Etymological.
Etymological.
Yes,
Wow.
that way people can get the definitions of some of the more older terms, or how these words actually came to be through time, instead of just looking at their average dictionary. The
Yeah.
etymological dictionary looks at words in their basic, most simplest
Yeah.
roots.
I was always curious of how you found your Greek. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Latin. Your Latin root. So does that fall into that dictionary? Like that dictionary goes into like the Latin root to it? Because I'm
Yes.
assuming because it goes into the roots. Wow.
It tries to find all the oldest accounts of words as much as possible. So
Okay.
it'll like say this word was first used in the 13th century. It'll try to
Yeah.
mark it down to where it came
You
from.
need to write that down for people. Write that in chat or something because that could be a really useful tool.
Yeah,
Um, I
yeah.
would love to use that too. Just
Um,
to even like, I would be looking up like words of just things that I use every
you
day just
can.
to be
It's
like,
fun.
oh, hey,
It is
like a
fun.
government. I know ever since you told me that government means mind control has
Yeah.
completely, I'm just like, dang,
Governmentus. Yes. So
dang,
and
Daniel.
you can use a Latin dictionary too, right? Or use a Greek suffixes and prefixes dictionaries. Those are all dictionaries of their own,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
different things you can use, and
yeah.
um, and you can break down the words. You can learn a lot from that. So you can do that. If in case anybody's interested, it's Etymological. Very complex. That's etym, etymological.
Got it.
So once you know etymo, then you can just add logical, and then you'll get dictionary. There's a very
There you go,
common
chat.
website.
I
Yeah.
will save you. I will save you. I got you, chat.
There you go. All right. So
This was fun. Are
yes.
we concluding or are we going on?
Yeah, so no, I just want to recap on the true intelligence. So, true intelligence is intellect plus creativity, right? So, we have the brain balance between the
Yeah.
masculine and the feminine. And
Yep.
so, we're finding our intelligence because we're simply using our whole neocortex. Going back to this, the neocortex is this human brain. We're using our human brain as it's intended for its higher order thinking function. Okay, so if the human being's left brain hemisphere becomes chronically dominant, the R complex will take over the executive function of the brain, and the person will become ruled by selfishness and base desires and develop a
Okay.
personality based on domination and control.
Uh,
Okay, so R complex, right? R complex, reptilian brain. So it's saying here that this part of the brain will become, I believe, more used, and thus it will become dominant, right? Because it's saying it's going to become chronically dominant. So the R complex, the reptilian, R for reptilian, just remember that. R
yeah.
complex, reptilian, will take over the executive function of the brain. So there's these components that connect to obviously the brain
Yeah.
structure, and that's why we went over it. So the reptilian brain is going to be the one that's going to take control from the left brain. And so the person will become based in what? What is the reptilian brain? Survival. Okay? I don't expect you to to name it right away. So survival, reptilian. Emotion, mammalian. Okay? So you might already be making some thoughts about what the right brain is then, if it becomes
Yeah.
dominant.
Oh, I thought you were gonna see if I can find some prime examples of left brain because I mean, I'm a memer. I love all the memes, and there's so many things that come to mind when you just say base desires develop a personality based on domination and control, and the fact that this is called reptilian brain. You can just imagine what's going through my head. Yes, I'm a zoomer, and I love my memes, but no, it's just crazy how this is all correlating. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And it's crazy because we're living it every single day, and especially nowadays, everything's kind of just being brought to light,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's good or bad. But there's just so many things that are falling into place based on this knowledge that you realize in your everyday life because of just how things are just happening in the world, and it's crazy how
And you
all
still may
this.
ask, you might ask still, like, how does this relate to natural law? And we're mentioning this because, like I said, we have to consider taking natural law into the real world application and what it actually affects our actions. So we actually need to understand, well, how are our actions formed? If natural law dictates our actions, yeah, we could just go over natural law and forget the part about actions. But if we go over both how our actions are formed and what they're formed by and how natural law affects those actions, then we're getting the most holistic picture as to what happens in the world.
Correct. Sorry, my mic was on.
Yeah,
I see what
so I want you to think about the opposite of this then, right? So look at this slide. Left brain hemisphere, it becomes chronically dominant. R complex, reptilian part takes over the brain. Ruled by selfishness, base desires, domination, control. What is the opposite of this if we're looking at the right brain?
the nurturing side, the obviously holistic healing, the thinking, the creativity, like you said. So instead of selfishness, it would be humble. It would be more grounded.
Okay, but dominant. So that means it's becoming extreme. So to the point where the right brain is now becoming dominant.
Submissive.
Oh, what did you just say?
Well, the opposite of dominant is submissive.
There you go. And what about what about control? The opposite of being in control is what?
Conform.
There you go. Okay. There you go.
Ding ding ding! A+. Thank gosh.
Yeah. So and then now it says the R complex takes over the left brain. So what do you think takes over the right brain?
Takes over the right brain?
Or I'm sorry, takes executive function. It will take over. It says executive function of the brain. So like here, like we have these parts of the brain. So we're saying that the reptile brain here is going to impact the left brain. And so what do you think is going to become overused when we have the right brain dominant? So we're kind of saying they're associated, right? So the left brain is associated with the reptile brain because if we become dominant on the left brain, we start using that reptile brain. It takes over the other functions of the brain. So if we have the right brain instead of the left brain, instead of the reptile brain, it could only be what? What else? What's the other part of the brain that I didn't mention?
No. Wait, I'm confused.
Yes.
I'm so confused. Why am I confused about this? Why am I confused about this? No, I don't know.
Okay.
No, I don't know. Why am I confused about this? We were doing so well, and I'm like, What?
So we have the R complex, the reptilian brain. Name the three main components in the human brain. Right, with the neocortex. Neocortex.
The mammal, human.
Yes. There you go.
Mammal, human, and reptilian.
There you go. So we didn't mention the mammalian, right? That's the only thing we haven't talked about.
Oh, okay,
And think about it. What is the right brain? What is the intuition? What is the right side that we were talking about?
The loving mother or the mother hen.
Now what is the function of the mammalian brain?
Holistic thinking.
No.
Emotion.
Yes.
Yeah, emotion. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So reptilian brain was survival, and that's okay. We're just reciting, just so we understand it.
No.
Mammalian brain is emotion. So now let's look at the right brain.
And the human brain was high thinking.
High order thinking, but that's everything here. That's everything here. That's if they work together.
Oh, that's right. That's the whole shell. Got it.
Yes. Right, because now we're looking at the whole brain when we look at the neocortex, so the whole top. So that means all the functions are working together. So here we have the human brain. Again, the right brain this time. If it becomes chronically dominant, which means we're using the right brain, its right brain functions most of the time. The limbic system will take over. That is the mammalian brain. So don't get that confused. The limbic system is the mammalian brain, and that is emotion. What did you say? You said naive, and you said submissiveness. Look on the slide. It says submissiveness, and it says naivete. So
nice. I'm big brain.
Yeah, so you got it. You don't you worry, you got it. So it says the person will become ruled by their own emotions and develops a personality based in submissiveness and that naivete. So this,
Naivete.
yeah, it's another way to put it.
I like
So, left brain versus right brain. Okay, but it's not a versus situation. It's a situation that we want both to be in balance. Going back again to this, we have the reptile brain, the limbic brain. We want these to work together because they're both here meant to be together in the brain,
Yep.
so the human brain works better overall. This part of the brain, the human brain, the neocortex, depends on these other parts. Like you said, this is the roots to the tree, right? So these need
Yes.
to be working properly, and they need to be working with one another for the neocortex to be working properly. And so everything depends on one another. If we are too left-brained, then yes, the reptile brain takes over. If we're too right-brained, then yes, the mammalian brain takes over. That's just because of how they're associated. That's just because of our anatomy. But they're all supposed to work together. And so it's
And you
our
want to
job
find
to balance it.
balance.
Yes.
Yep.
So next time we will talk about the schism then, which is, if you know the definition of schism, it means stuck, getting stuck in certain corners, or we're getting stuck in certain parts of the brain, getting stuck. Where are we getting stuck, right? So we need to figure out.
Blockages, filters, blockages,
Yes, anything like that. Absolutely.
barriers. Okay, got
Absolutely.
it. Ooh, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you
This
think
episode was really good. I feel like I thrived in this episode. I got so many answers right. It was like, dang, A+ on this one. No, but I mean, there's gonna be bound to have bumps in the road, right?
Mhm.
And so, and I guess it's what schism is gonna be about.
Yes.
Right? Took it away. Sorry, I was pointing at the screen and then you took it away.
Sorry.
So no, that's really interesting.
Mhm.
That we're just growing. I love this.
And
Good
we're
job.
going to see where natural law fits in to this, and how it can help us in learning more about this as we move on. So
Okay.
now that we have our definition of natural law, and now that we've established the left brain versus right brain, and how society might fall to either or, and you acknowledge that we indeed can, the natural law can probably help us fulfill that balance. But how? If we're learning the consequences to our behavior, but this is thought, but we know thought contributes to our behavior, then we probably want to fix thought. And we got to fix thought with how we know actions will manifest, why it's dangerous. Why is it dangerous to think mathematically to the extreme? Why is it dangerous to think, why is it dangerous to be too submissive to the extreme? Some people might actually think that's okay to give their life away, to rule over others, to tell everybody what to do, or to just follow everybody all the time and don't command others. You see, people might actually think that's okay, and some people, might realize that's a problem and may not know how to escape it. So we're going to address this. This is real life problems. At the end of the day, when you take it all and you look at all of it, it's like, wow, it's real life problems. Although we're looking at anatomy, we're looking at how the brain functions in the world, we can actually understand real world problems from it. And so that's the importance in this that I see. And I want to thank you again for learning more about this.
You are a wonderful host, and you do a great job educating me. I mean, I'm sorry if I give you hard times. I know the last episode was a little rough, but hey, we overcame it, and today I think was a really
Sure.
I think today was a really good day.
And for those who entered chat a little later in the episode, I suggest checking out the earlier episodes or going back to the beginning of this episode, and that way everything could also make more sense for you in case you came in late or came in later on. But I thank you guys for being here, and of course, if you guys want to talk, in chat, write a little message, say, hey, I have some questions that I want to ask you, and we'll go over them. But for now, we're going to stop this recording, and I want to say thank you. If you haven't, visit onegreatworknetwork.com. This is, again, live on twitch.tv/kukunut.tv. Also, if you want your recipes or you're questioning about, the nutrition and the food you're eating and your day-to-day meals, and you want to share that with the world, maybe you're growing some food, you pick some food from the supermarket, you're questioning, is this good for me? How is it going to benefit me? Is there anything I got to worry about extremes when it comes to foods? Am I getting too many anti-nutrients and so forth? I will suggest, how about go on Instagram, #rated recipes, #rated recipes. Crystal and I will actually rate your recipes, if you submit a photo of your food on Instagram, hashtag rated recipes. That's rated R for recipes. So
Rated R, gentlemen.
and also, I might warn you again. We might be a little critical of your recipes, but that's just to have some fun and to entertain, but also to teach. So we're gonna poke some fun at it, but we might plan on doing a whole thing with it. I wanted to mention that. So if you want to post your food there, you want to get some criticism on it, you're okay with receiving some criticism on the foods you eat, and you want to share that, hashtag rated recipes on Instagram. Thank you everybody for joining. This is Cory, Edmund, Endrulat here with Crystal Endrulat from twitch.tv/KrystalsLife. Bye.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. Hope you learned something today and took something away. Teach your friends, teach your dog, teach your mom, teach anyone.
Yes, you can do it. You can do it. And we're going to continue to show you how you can. Teach and learn. Teach and learn. We all have to learn. We all can teach. Don't forget that. Thank you. Bye.